This is episode 20 of Pitchin It With Ben. In this episode, I am joined by PGA and LPGA teaching professional Cathy Kim. Cathy was recently named to Golf Digest's Best Young Teachers list, and she shares what that means to her. We also talk about her journey to becoming a teaching professional. We talk LPGA Tour and some players we enjoy watching, Inbee Park, and how incredible she is. And Cathy also shares a few tips to help us all improve our game. All this and more on episode 20. All right, I am happy, very happy and excited to be joined today by PGA and LPGA teaching professional and recently named to Golf Digest's Best Young Teachers list, Cathy Kim. Cathy, how's it going?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. You know, I recently got my first two separate nines in. So I'm feeling
Nice.
good about that. You know, the snow's melting and getting a little bit of sunshine.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Well,
Awesome.
first of
Awesome.
all, I want to talk to you while we're on the topic. Golf Digest Best Young Teachers list. What does that honor, distinguishment, what does that mean to you?
To me, it just means that I'm doing my job and somebody recognized me for it. Yeah, it was a really cool award to get because obviously Golf Digest is so distinguished. It's just such a iconic magazine for golf. And so when I did get on the list, and I saw my name on the list of teachers, it was just really cool to see. There aren't a lot of females on that list, right? Number one. And there aren't a lot of Asians on that list either. So it was really awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I can only imagine. But so it's interesting to me, like when you first started teaching, did you
Yeah.
have any goals or aspirations to like be on the best teachers list of any kind, or like is that something you thought about when you first started?
Not when I first started, but a couple years into it, I definitely had aspirations to want to be a top 100 golf teacher and be on all sorts of lists. And I mean, at that time, it felt so far-fetched, that I was like, I'll just put that on the back burner, whatever, not a big deal if I don't do it. But it was definitely on my mind. And it took a while to even get any recognition for what I do. And there are so many instructors out there that don't get recognition where they absolutely should. And I think a lot of acknowledgement for myself has to do with my social media presence. And if it wasn't for that, then I don't know if I would be on that list. So, yeah.
Well, I don't know about that, but I mean, you do have a great social media presence on Instagram. I think as of today, I checked you at 23.6 thousand followers. And I love that the way you kind of approach teaching. Like obviously you teach at a club, correct? I think the
I do.
1750.
1757 Golf Club. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. In Northern Virginia.
So as we were talking before we started recording, you said that you kind of the videos that you make are kind
Yeah.
of to lead people to that, not necessarily to be like an online teacher.
Correct.
You've become really like that's where I first saw you, right? Through you were doing some written things and some videos with womensgolf.com, and they have a great platform for teaching professionals. And that's, you know, I've done some work with them too. And but the video, so it's interesting to me. I want to talk about the video part, the social media part of it, because about a year ago at this time, we entered this global pandemic that really
Yeah.
changed the dynamic of a lot of things for everyone. So I'm wondering, did the videos and your online presence, did that pick up? Well, first of all, like how did the pandemic affect teaching? Especially at the
Yeah.
beginning. I think we've figured some things out more a year later. But did you start to increase that presence online and your videos during the pandemic last year?
Yeah. So our area, the area that I live in Virginia, we actually never shut down most of the golf courses unless it was a county course. So, um, most of the teachers were very fortunate to be able to continue to teach unless, they had some personal reason why they wouldn't. So for me, I had just gotten married at the end of February. We had our wedding, and then then it happened. Like the world stopped right after that. And so um I wasn't sure what was going to happen. Nobody knew at that time, as you know, right? Like we just
Mhm.
didn't know how dangerous it was. So I didn't teach for a good month and a half to 2 months after. Like my husband and I decided to go into quarantine, and we stayed. We sheltered in place for a while. And during that time, yeah, I definitely had to start getting creative, and figuring out what I can do to continue an online presence, but also feel like I was being productive in my mission to grow the game. So from that, golf tips from home started happening, right? What you can do in your living room kind of thing. And then I started doing some IG live interviews with different people, different players, different characters of the golf industry, which was really cool. I really enjoyed doing that. And, I'll still get requests from people asking to do, those interviews. They're like, "Hey, how come you're not bringing that back?" I'm like, "Well, we're all busy now." So so that's why. But yeah, so definitely had to get creative. And then once I did start teaching, the way that we were teaching started changing because we were no longer um, able to get hands-on with the student. We didn't want to be hands-on with the student. We also everybody still wears masks, right? And making sure you have hand sanitizer around, making sure you have all of the stuff that you need to make the student feel safe and also make yourself feel safe. So the pandemic in some ways I think kind of sparked a new innovation for the golf industry, and through that, and with golf luckily being deemed as a safe sport in most areas of the country, we had a really big boom, like huge, big golf boom over the year. And yeah, so that's where I'm at right now. I'm just staying busy. People want to learn how to play golf. I imagine, some people have funds left over from maybe a vacation that they didn't take, right? So they decide to allocate that to golf. And so yeah, it's been really neat to be able to meet people that probably wouldn't have started the sport if it hadn't been for the pandemic.
Right. I think that was one of my it was kind of the mixed emotions of things. Like I've been I don't know if it's kind of self-diagnosed, kind of like I've
Yeah.
dealt with a lot of anxiety and stuff, but the one thing I have felt very good about is golf, especially with it being outside. It's like
Yeah.
you can get away from the crowdiness,
The
the
crowdiness.
crowds
Yeah.
at the supermarket
Yeah.
or restaurants or whatever, and get a breath of fresh air. I mean, golf was that
Yeah.
way for me. I think a lot of people before,
Yeah.
but the pandemic, like you said, I think it caused people to be okay. Well, what can we do? We can't go to sporting events now inside.
Mhm.
So you start to, and lots of things that are inside. You're like, what can I do? Okay, let's
Yeah.
try golf because it's one of the few things that pretty much I think even scientifically deemed very safe.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. And I just remembered, and it's kind of funny. But have you seen on social media recently, maybe on TikTok or something? But there are this trend where like parents are asking their kids, "Hey, how do you answer a phone?" And they do this thing and they want to see what their hand reaction is. And of course, I think even me, like growing up, like this is the sign for a phone.
Yeah.
But these like Gen Z, like these young kids, they're like doing this because like they
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
they don't know any like they don't know like what's
Yeah.
a phone doesn't look like this. It doesn't flip.
For
Like
sure.
they don't know this. So it reminded me of a video that you shared sometime last year of one of your students, I think a young girl. But it's interesting because we have a whole year now. People that are getting introduced to the game, there's a lot of things that they don't know any better, such
Yeah.
as the cups.
Yeah.
The cups being raised. A lot of golf courses have like golf noodles, or there's
Yeah.
innovation of the different easy lifts or the practice greens that have raised cups. And I remember
Yeah.
you asking, I think one of your students, like, "Hey, did you know that this is not the actual like height or
Yeah.
depth of a golf hole? It actually goes down significantly more."
Yeah.
Um, and I had forgot, like, I played so many rounds now, I kind of started to forget about that. And I finally played and it's like, whoa, that's deep. Like it goes
Yeah.
far.
Oh, I'm telling you, the first time my husband and I played golf at a golf course where the cups were like the official cups, the real
Yeah.
golf cups, we were we were just jumping for joy. We were like, "Yes, this is great. Real golf is back." Like honestly, I feel like the shallower cups were more difficult to knock the ball in and keep it in. Because there were several occasions where I saw somebody's ball or my ball go into the cup and pop back out.
Oh,
And we all knew that wasn't because of the player, it was because of the way that the cup was sitting.
right.
So, and then, I played in a golf tournament where we had to keep the flag sticks in.
Mm,
And that was not a thing, right, for most people, and it was really difficult. So even if you're and I saw a girl, one of the women that I was playing with, she hit the perfect putt, right? It would have hit the center of the cup and it would have dropped in. It hits the stick and it hits it in such a way where it shoves the ball back out. And it wasn't because she put it too hard or anything by any means. It literally was because the stick was angled and
ah,
it popped back out. So, I mean, it's crappy, right?
yeah. Yeah.
You're not getting rewarded for good shots.
And that was it. You saying
So,
that tournament, they were required to keep the flag sticks in?
yeah, yeah,
Mm,
you had to keep the flag stick in, and that for me, I personally like to pull the flag stick out. So it threw me for a loop for a while, and then just to see the misfortunes
yeah.
of
Yeah.
people, and yeah, yeah. So it's a different game now for sure.
Well, it makes me think though about you as a teaching professional in the
Yeah,
last, let's see, 2, 3 years, I would say 2 or 3 years. There's been a significant amount of changes to the rules of golf. Has that
yeah,
been a challenge at all to you as a teacher? Like when you're teaching students, for instance, like 101, are you teaching golf 101, different rules, like the drop, when you had to get past, like, we all did shoulder height.
yeah,
And then it
yeah,
became, I think that's one, I remember, I think Ricky Fowler was the first one who kind of messed that up on a like big national TV
yeah,
scale, I
yeah.
remember. But anyway, I guess as a teaching professional, have you caught yourself like, oh, actually it's a little different now? Like,
Not really. As far as golf rules go, what I teach is just like the essentials of
mm,
what an everyday golfer would be using for their round. So, making sure that your ball is teed up behind the tee markers, right? Not in front. Making sure that you don't ground the rake down and start improving your lie for whatever reason it may be in the sand trap, cart path rules, that kind of thing. Um, the modified stuff, I think they eventually start to learn it as they become more avid. But I would say most of the students that go through like my classes, my group classes, are typically like spanking brand new golfers, or they're COVID golfers. They literally started when the pandemic started. So, um, I would say the rule changes have affected my game personally more, right, when
yeah.
I have to play in a tournament than my students for sure. Yeah.
I got you. I got you. Um, so I want to talk about how you got to this point where you're now a teaching professional. So, like,
Yeah.
when did you start playing golf?
So I started playing right around 11 or 12. So I guess a little later than most people, if that makes any sense. I don't know. Some people, like my husband started when he was 4. So he's been playing
Yeah.
longer than I have. Um, so I started around then. My dad had started golf very shortly before me, and he decided to put me into a PGA run golf camp, like a junior camp, mainly just as a means of babysitting. So it wasn't really about the golf itself. It was both my parents had they own a business, so it was either hang out at the business or you go to the golf course. Um, I go there, I go through my first golf camp. A PGA professional he offered to give me free golf lessons. And so that's kind of where my golf started. And of course, my parents being Korean, they were like, "Oh, free golf lessons. She must have something. So
Mm.
then, that's when my tournament play started, and I played junior golf, went into collegiate golf, played a little bit on the mini tour stuff, tried Q school a couple times, and here I am. So, so yeah, that's kind of what my golf career has been. Um, and through that process, I was working when I was in college. I started working at a golf course. They had me teaching junior camps, and I started to really find fulfillment in teaching others, and how like somebody's eyes would just light up when they hit that first amazing shot and the ball goes up in the air and they're like, "Whoa, I just did that by myself." So yeah, that's where kind of my love for teaching started to grow, and it was a great way for me to stay connected to the golf industry. Little did I know how deep the golf industry actually goes, right? And I think
Yeah.
we're seeing more and more of that now, because of Instagram and Twitter, and now, what do you call it? Clubhouse. That's another one now.
Yeah, yeah.
Just cannot keep up. It's it's just so many things.
There are so many
So
things. Well,
yeah,
so I did want to ask you about that. You're like teaching. I was actually listening to another interview podcast. It was just a general sports podcast. They were talking to a
yeah,
coach. It was a football coach. And he said he's a former NFL player, I think. And then they asked him, when did you really start to get into coaching? When did you want to become a coach? Because not everyone that plays either wants to be a coach or can be, because there's patience. I mean, playing golf, for instance, it takes a lot of patience, but
yeah,
teaching can be a whole another level of patience, because
yeah,
especially you, when you're dealing with people that are just getting introduced to the game. It's
yeah.
like you have to understand that they're not coming, like they have no background usually, like
Right, right.
about rules or how you hold it, et cetera, et cetera. So do you remember, like, is there a specific moment? You said you got some fulfillment seeing people improve and seeing the reaction to hitting a great shot. Is there a specific moment that stands out in your mind where you were like, wow, this is really something that I would love to do?
Um, it wasn't really, I don't think that's kind of what went through my mind. It was, so when I first got my assistant position, I was assistant professional for the PGA program because I was still an apprentice. Um, I was working in the operation and then teaching on the side, and then I started to notice that my book was growing. And so it wasn't really like, "Oh, this is what I wanna do." It was more like, "Wow, I'm so lucky to be able to do this
Mm.
right now," right? So, um, I think from that, like, every day I go to work and I'd be like, "Well, this sucks. I don't like doing this in the operation." But whenever I was on the lesson tee, I'd be like, "Man, I'm so lucky to be able to be standing here, create a relationship with somebody that's standing in front of me, and also help them improve in something that is so difficult," right? So, um, I don't know. There wasn't really a moment. I guess I was kind of thrown into it because I had to go through the PGA program in order to get my credentials, and then eventually that just kind of evolved into doing a full-time thing. So, yeah, it's the same thing for me even today. Like, I'm so lucky to be able to meet new people, create relationships with them, build relationships with them, and also to be able to help them find success in one of the toughest things that you can do on this planet, right? And along the way, they have a cheerleader like me that is going to support them 100% of the way. And, there's a lot of downs when it comes to your golf game, right?
Oh, for
So
sure.
you need somebody there, whether you like it or not. The support is so important. So, so yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, golf is a different animal altogether.
So kind of backtracking a little bit, but is
Yeah,
the process, so you played collegiately, turned
yeah,
professional,
yeah,
you gave a shot. You did a few times at Q school, and I think I
yeah.
saw you played some Cactus Tour events, mini tour
Yeah,
events, and did you get to a point where you realized like what it would take? Like, what was the process?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It was, so number 1, it costs a ton of money to be able to play professionally. And, as an amateur as well, it's expensive. And at the time when I was playing, there weren't the only options we had was, Symetra Tour, Cactus Tour, or I think there was one called, like, the Suncoast Tour or something like that in Florida. And the entry fees are outrageous. Like, we're talking, like, anywhere from, like, six to $800 every time you play. You have to place top whatever in order to get your money back, if anything, right? And so to be able to support yourself and play enough times to even go to Q school costs a ton of money. And my parents, them owning a business, they were willing to pay for it, but I felt so guilty because I knew that it was going into they were kind of like eating out of their retirement for me to play. And so it was one of those things for me. The finances was a problem, and then also just not having enough tournament experience under my belt before going to Q school was a really big problem because I found myself I can't remember which, I think it was the second Q school time that I went. I was standing in the middle of a fairway and I'm going, what the heck am I doing? Like, why am I even here? Right? Like, it just doesn't make sense that I'm here. I'm clearly not ready for this. And a lot of it was negative self-talk, right? But at the same time, I knew deep down that there's no reason for me to have spent thousands of dollars to get to Q school when I wasn't ready. Like, nobody would do that, right? You're not going to like enter a marathon before uh you plan out how you're going to train and all of that stuff. Like, it's just not going
Right.
to happen. You're not going to wake up and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to go run a marathon next week, right? So it was a very rude awakening, but at the same time it kind of knocked some sense into me because I knew how difficult it was. I felt like I had the game to get there, but it wasn't going like I wasn't going to finish in the top 5 for Q school like at any stage, right? It wasn't going to be that. I would maybe be, if I was at the top of my game, maybe middle of the pack, which is great. Like, that would have gotten me right through, but I wasn't even prepared for that. So at that moment, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to make a decision. Either I go home and I really got to figure out what I need to do. I need to make money and I need to go through a whole bunch of tournaments. And unfortunately, women's golf, like, you have to travel. You have to travel out of state, right? So there's just so many more expenses when it comes to for women to be able to play professional golf. Um, and then from there, I was like, I think I'll try something else. Like, I wanna try something else. Maybe it's not in the golf industry, maybe it is. So I gave myself a year to figure out what I wanted to do. And finally, I ended up back at a golf course, working at a golf course, decided to start the PGA program. And that's how I ended up here. So took a lot of soul searching, I guess, in a lot of sense, because, if you're playing for that long and you start as a junior golfer and your motive was always to be a professional golfer and your family's motive is always to be a professional golfer, there's no other way. Like, you don't think about a safety net, right? It doesn't happen. It doesn't work that way. So it was a very rude awakening. And I imagine there's a lot of women who were in my shoes who didn't make it on tour, who are going, I don't know what to do. Like, this is all I knew. Golf is all I knew. Playing in tournaments is all I knew. Being competitive is all I knew. Who am I now? And you really go through this weird, like, self identity crisis, right? For a
Yeah.
while, because you're not sure what you're going to do. But I promise there's always light on the other side and you'll figure it out. So,
Right.
yeah.
It just it blows my mind how deep professional golf is. Like all golf in general, but like how good, like how many people are good? Not just how
Yeah.
many people are good, how many people are great. Because you go to an event like LPGA Q School Stage 1, there's usually more than 300 golfers there. And I think there definitely are some young women there that maybe they're not ready, but they're trying like to actually get to the next level, whether that's Symmetric Tour, LPGA Tour, but they're there getting tournament experience because there's not a lot of pressures that are it's a different like that level, seeing so many people playing multiple golf courses, and you're playing on a major championship golf course, by the way. In the heat, it's usually held in September, I think. So it's like you have all these different factors going into it. And then even when you get to the professional level, like the one of the first mind-blowing moments to me, like big mind-blowing moments, was when Kelly Shawn decided to no longer play professional golf. And I don't know if you know who Kelly is, but I watched when 2017, it was my first major championship I went to, KPMG Women's PGA at Olympia Fields, where Danielle had her big breakthrough. But that week, I think maybe on Friday, Kelly shot a 63, 9 under 63 in a major championship at Olympia Fields, which I haven't had the chance to play it. But the PGA Tour has played there. It's a major, they played a US Open there, I think. It's not an easy course. That's the point. She shot a 63 in a major championship under all those conditions.
Yeah.
The rough and pin placements and everything else. And in 2000, I think at the end of 2018, so just like a year and a half later, she decided to, I don't know if she technically retired or not, and I don't know her personally, but I know I believe she's working a job in New York City now. Anyway, it was just a moment I was like, I watched this player. I saw her shoot a 63 in a major at the highest level you can play in women's golf. And now she's no longer playing. Like, it's just, it's amazing.
It's mind-blowing, isn't it? Yeah. And unfortunately, like, we'll never know the whole story about it. Right. Because it's all like it's an internal struggle. And I'm sure the decision for her to stop playing was not an easy one.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if she got to that level, right? Like, why would you turn your back on that? And I think a lot of women do that. Like, we have to there's a moment in life where you're like, okay, what am I going to do? Like, what do I really want to do? Right.
Yeah.
And I ask myself that probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 times a month, just to make sure that I'm in check with whether I'm happy or not with what I'm doing. And if I'm not, if there's something, a part of my job that I feel like is not up to what I want to be doing, then that's when I sit down and I start changing it. And I'm going, okay, what is going to make me happy? Because that's really what's important at the end of the day. Like, when I talk to Danielle, she's an intense person, right? Like, you can tell she's super nice, but she's also a very intense person. But that she really loves golf. She truly loves golf, and she truly loves competing, and she loves every process of the game. And that's why she's such a great player, right? You really got to love every process of the game if you want that to be your job. And I think a lot of women tend to get into it, whether it's because of family pressures, especially in like the Korean community, right? Like, that's a big thing. But it's you got to really love it. And if you don't love it and you're still pretty good, think about how much better you could be if you really did love it, right? That's that extra gear that we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Tiger loves golf. That's why Tiger is Tiger, right? He has the extra gear, and a lot of the guys are like that. Rory's the same way. You can tell they truly, truly love the game in every aspect. And I don't think a lot of the players, even if they are on the tour right now, I don't think that that's the case. And that's why their careers will kind of dwindle, right? A little bit sooner than others.
Right. And without naming anybody specifically, I do think that that's very much present in professional golf, men's and women's. You can see it. There are some players that their natural ability might be so good that they're able to like they play well enough, like keeping their status, for instance, that's not necessarily an issue. But winning golf tournaments, which is the goal for pretty much every single person when you tee it up, maybe the results aren't quite there, and you're like, what's going on? I think some of that too, you have to really love the game, the whole process of it. I don't know. It's very interesting.
Yeah. And listen, like, it might not be, you might have loved it at one point, right?
Mhm.
But something changed that perspective. And if you're so far in up your own butt about your game, right? Candidly speaking, if you're up your own butt about your game, then you need to pull your head out of your own butt and figure out a way to get a different perspective about your game. And that's what I see even with amateur players. They're so locked into something that is so not relevant for their game, and but they're so convinced that that's what it is, right? Or it's like, why me? Why am I the worst putter of blah 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 blah? I can almost guarantee that you're not the worst putter, right, of whatever it is, but because you think that you are, right, and there's a little bit of a pity party going on there, right?
Mhm.
That's why you're not getting better. And I think even with some of these players who we all know, like, plenty of talent is out there, but there are certain people that win and certain people that don't. And same thing with me. I scratch my head. I'm going, why isn't so and so winning? Like, she clearly has the chops to do it. Maybe that person needs to go on a vacation somewhere, leave the golf clubs, and do a little bit of perspective searching, right? And kind of like look at the bigger picture, because golf really isn't the only thing in their life, right? Golf is a part of their identity, but it's not their entire identity. And I think
Right.
it is dangerous to kind of make golf become them, right? And it's like, if you don't play great week in and week out, then what are people going to think of me? Or what am I? What good am I if I don't perform every week? And I think that's like a terrible way to live. It's a terrible way to live, right? It's
Yeah.
torture. It's absolute torture. So I really hope that some of these players, like, I'm a huge fan of these players that don't win every week. They don't win, I don't know, they haven't won in the last 2 or 3 years, but their games are so freaking good, right? Like,
Mhm.
just chill out and play your game and you can be on top, right?
Yeah.
I just want to shake him sometimes.
I totally hear you on that. Like, someone that comes to mind right away is Lexi.
Yeah.
Simply because I can't imagine like what it's like to be like in women's golf. There are not too many, I would say, like the superstar where you have lots of media pressure, lots of fan pressure, lots of, I think a lot of the top Korean players deal with that. But in women's golf as a whole, like there's not,
Yeah.
it's really a handful of the women that feel all of that.
Yeah.
And Lexi, like how much pressure is it to feel like having to post a video that shows you working on your putting? Like we all know, like Lexi's putting has not been like at the elite of all women's golf, but the rest of her game is very strong. But she has so much fan support. With that comes a lot of naysayers too, and or a lot of haters, I guess you could say. And
Yeah.
it's like I remember seeing on her social media or Instagram, like, and here's a putting video. Just let you guys know that I did practice for 3 hours putting today. Like you shouldn't have to feel obligated to do that. Or if you post this, this happens to a lot of people on social media, athletes in general. It's like, oh, you post a picture of you at the mall or at the
Yeah.
beach, and then you get
Yeah.
the, hey, why aren't you practicing? Like,
Yeah. I think it's a double-edged sword. I think that it's unfortunately, right, the scrutiny for athletes is higher than ever because of social media, right? But there are plenty of players who choose to stay private, and that's a choice, right? And with that choice, they don't get the scrutiny nearly as much as these players who are active on social media. So I don't want to say that they're inviting it in, right?
right,
Or it's their fault, but if you're somebody like Lexi, who seems like she's like the nicest person, right? And she clearly works hard on her game. Like, I see her doing workout stuff all the time, right? Um, and she clearly cares about her appearance as well, like her public appearance. Um, it sucks, but it comes with the job,
right.
and you're getting paid for it too, right? I mean, don't think for a second she's not getting paid for that. So, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's not like I'm sure she does it because she wants to reach out to her fans, But at the same time, like, I'm sure, like, Ricky Fowler's a great example too. Like,
Mm.
he's so good with the fans. The dude, like, when I was working at TPC Summerlin, the dude would, like, literally stay an hour after each round just signing autographs and taking photos. Like, you don't just do that out of the kindness of your own heart, right? Like, you do that either because you truly appreciate your fans, or there's some sort there, I don't know, there must be some sort of, like, sponsorship deal or something. I don't know, but he's one of the few that I really I kind of sat back and I was like, wow, he's a great example of what a golf ambassador should look like, right? And I
Yeah.
think Lexi is very, very similar to that. But as far as the scrutiny goes, it's none of anybody's business whether they're practicing or not, right? I think
Hmm.
I saw Mooney He, same thing.
Oh,
Like, she
yeah.
doesn't post anything about golf, or she doesn't really post much about her golf stuff. But people are like, "Why aren't you practicing?" Who the heck cares? None of
Yeah.
your freaking. Why aren't you practicing? Right? Go get. Why
Yeah.
don't you go get better?
Yeah, for sure. You know, when I first met her in LA a couple years, 2019, and I don't even want to like admit it out loud, but it's one of those things. I think we all have, whether we mean to or not, we have some we portray people a certain way. We think about people in a
Yeah,
certain way. And some of those things you can't get rid of without seeing firsthand, like, oh, it's different, or you get affirmation, or you find out it's
yeah,
different.
yeah,
Well, in that, when I went to LA, she was at the LA tournament. It's like, first of all, she's incredibly nice. She's a wonderful person. She took time to talk to me, to interview with short interview with her. And the second thing is she works so hard. Like, she's not this quote unquote, like a lot of people, like she does. She's very fortunate that she has a large social media following, but she's not the Instagram golfer girl or whatever. Like, she truly does love the game. She truly does work really hard.
yeah.
And she doesn't need to prove that to anybody. Like, when
No,
she won Q Series a couple years ago,
I was just gonna say that. Yeah, she
which,
did.
by the way, if I remember my statistics correctly, she was the only person under par in all 8 rounds. Which, if you
Yeah,
can, you imagine any golfer at any level going consecutive rounds under par. You're like, my best streak in my life is like 4 or 5 rounds in the
yeah,
70s. And I was like, that's like the best feeling I've ever had. But to go under
yeah,
par, I mean, shoot under par and do that at one of the most difficult, because an 8 round tournament, that's unheard of.
yeah. So that it's so funny that you mentioned that, because I was talking to my husband about her the other day, about how, like, she's not very big, right? She's tiny.
No.
She's tiny. And we know that if you want to be an elite golfer, right, on the tour, you have to have some distance off the tee. Otherwise, the game gets really, really hard, right? So I was like, the fact that she was medalist at Q School with the distance that she has, right? The length off the tee that she has, that means her short game has to be freaking phenomenal. Like, she literally had to have been putting lights out, because you can only get so close to the hole with a 5 wood or a hybrid, right? When other people are grabbing at an 8 iron or a 7 iron. It's just facts, right?
Yeah.
So it really showed that no matter what her public persona is, we kind of, I don't know if it's her publicist or whoever it is, right, who does her public appearance thing. She's kind of portrayed as this, like, rich, spoiled, I only like to do, like, artsy stuff. I have a, Formula One boyfriend, and golf is kind of a side thing, right? That's
Mhm.
kind of the thing. And the fact that she was able to come out of Q School medalist by a lot, right? It
Mhm.
wasn't by like one stroke, it
Yeah.
was by a lot, was just so freaking impressive to me. Because I understand, like, I'm not a long hitter by any means at all. And so to see and recognize how well you had to have struck the ball that during those 8 rounds, and how well you had to have just controlled your mental game throughout the whole process, it's really freaking impressive to me. And so it kind of made me realize, wow, she's kind of the whole package. Like, if she really wanted to be, she's kind of the whole package, right?
Mhm.
and she can't grow anymore, unfortunately. So she's gonna have to figure something else out. But yeah,
Yeah.
she's definitely a player that I think we would want to look out for. And she gets a lot of scrutiny for not practicing, right? And I'm like, who the heck cares?
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
better than you are. So
For sure.
why
Oh,
does
isn't
it
that
matter?
the most infuriating part is that it's the people that can't play. If you're criticizing any professional golfer, by the way, like you have no room to talk because you're not a professional. So
Keyboard warriors, I'm telling you, it's crazy. It's crazy.
oh, by the way, one more thing about her victory there at Q Series. It was at Pinehurst in like October.
Yeah.
It's cold. So just
Oh, I
adding,
played 9. I played Pinehurst 9,
yeah.
and it is no joke. Like those greens are ridiculously hard, and the approaches into the green ridiculously hard, and the length that they were playing it at, I don't even know. Like I honestly don't know. I really wish somebody would just film the entire thing of her playing, because I would have liked to see that. And
Yeah.
she's pretty close. Like her average, I would say her distance averages are pretty close to like an amateur male's average, like a good amateur male's
Hmm.
average, right? So it would have been really interesting to be able to watch, because she had to work her ass off to do what she did.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so kudos to her.
And also and I mentioned how like she's a good person too. Like
Yeah.
I, in my personal experience, like I have, got to know her a little bit, but I talked to her in LA. That's like April. And then the next time I really saw her was in Indianapolis that year in September, I think. And she was on the range. She stopped hitting ball. Like she saw him. She stopped hitting, came over and talked to me. And it was like, I mean, it's like, that's great. It's like, but I didn't know. Like, I wasn't expecting it, right?
Yeah.
Like it just like,
Yeah.
well, I appreciate it.
You
Like
were so starstruck.
I was like, heartbeat starts racing. Like, oh my gosh, you know, no, I do have a funny story, personal story at the U.S. Women's Open. Actually, this one, Shoal Creek in 2018, when Area won. It was the final round. Final round. She tees off and she's on the first hole. She gets to the green and she marks her ball. Her playing partner is getting ready to putt. So she's just kind of going through a process, waiting. And she's like looked over in my general direction and she smiled and waved. And I was like I totally looked behind me. I was like, I was by myself over there. And I was like, oh, hey. But I was like, what is going on? It's the final round of the US Women's Open. You're
Yeah.
leading and you're taking the time right
Oh,
around
that's
to like
yeah.
say hey. Like I just I wasn't expecting it. But
Yeah.
not that I'm not trying to sound like oh, I'm cool, because I hope that's not how I'm coming across, but
You're so cool. You're so cool. You're the coolest.
well, I don't know about that, but thank you. But yeah, I mean, it's cool though. That's just another example though. The LPGA, like those aren't one-offs either. Like the LPGA is very special. I'll say special to me, but special, comma, to me because
Yeah.
the PGA Tour is great, and like the men that are out there playing, like they're great.
Yeah.
But I've been to PGA Tour events, and I've met a lot of jerks out there. I mean, to be honest, like that's kind of blunt. There's a lot of great
Yeah.
guys too. We talked about Ricky,
Yeah.
like not selling, but the LPGA, top to bottom, you just
Yeah.
find people that are really like nice. They care.
Oh,
They
there's definitely some D-bags on the PGA Tour. No joke. I mean, we all know it,
yeah.
right? Like they
Hmm.
think that they have to be, but they have like the most fragile egos too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
the reason why they're being D-bags. So I wouldn't worry about it too much.
So, well, since we're talking about the LPGA a little bit, I did want to ask
Yeah.
you a couple questions about the
Yeah.
LPGA. So, for one, like, who are some players that your favorite players that you enjoyed watching?
Well, over the weekend, Angel was quite entertaining. And you know what? She was so refreshing. I think that it was I really do think that we need more of that on the LPG tour. She was just so much fun to watch, you know? And so I thought I thought Angel was really, really fun to watch. Her commentary was just fantastic. Um,
So relatable.
yeah,
For
so
so
relatable,
relatable.
right? Yeah, so relatable. Her poor caddy.
Uh-huh.
Her caddy is a saint. And it's just got to be so much fun to be able to kind of watch that and feel the roller coaster of emotions at the same time. And let's see who else. I'm a huge Jennifer Song fan. I think she's due for she's due for a victory here very soon. I think she's getting closer and closer. So
Yeah.
really, really hoping that happens. Danielle's always really fun to watch because she's so intense, right? She looks like she's gonna kick your ass, right? Every
Uh-huh.
time. Um, who else do I enjoy? Lydia, I'm so glad she's starting to make a comeback. She can quit golf today though and still make it into the Hall of Fame.
Mhm.
And she already had like a freaking star-studded career like today, right? She's
Before
just
she turned 20, she already
yeah,
had like, yeah.
we forget that. And you know what? New golfers don't even recognize that. She's still so young too. So it's, somebody like her, she can literally just quit today and she'd be fine. She'd
Yeah.
be okay. But the fact that she still grinds is really impressive. Who else do I like watching? Lexi gives me a heart attack, unfortunately, whenever I watch her play.
Mhm.
So, especially around the greens, it just, gosh. And then Jin Young Ko is pretty consistent. So I hate to say it, but like she's a little boring to watch at times because she's so consistent, right?
I,
I want
you
a little
know,
drama.
she hits like, I think she almost beat Annika's record, I believe, for greens in regulation in 2019, which is one of the great seasons of all time. But I do know what you mean as far as that. Like, she's so good that it becomes like from an entertainment side, it's like, oh,
Oh,
she had another fairway. Oh, she had another green.
yeah,
Oh, she one putted again, or she two
it,
putted to like 2 inches. So she doesn't
yeah,
have to like no stress. Like,
yeah. And you know what's so funny about that though is that like I tell students all the time, I'm like, what you want is you want to play a boring round of golf. You want to hit a fairway and then you want to hit a green. You want to hit another fairway, you want to hit another green. That's how it works, right? If you want to be good, you got to play boring golf. It doesn't translate the best on camera, but yeah, it's true. She's just so freaking good.
yeah.
Um that the only time that I think is kind of from an entertainment standpoint, right? From a technical standpoint or even a mechanical standpoint, when we're watching her, that's a whole different story.
Hmm.
But if like, some random dude's watching or some random woman is watching LPGA Tour, she's not going to be the most entertaining to watch. Um, Taeyong, I think, is really kind of entertaining to watch because of her golf swing, right? The
Huh.
way that she just like rips at it. Who else? Who else do I like?
You know, Say Young too is that she always has it. Like, there was this argument, right? Like, she's not that old. But she's been on tour for quite a while now,
Yeah.
and she kept picking up these, regular LPGA Tour wins. But I think there was always, at least people close to the women's golf world, it was like, can she win a major? Because her style of play,
Yeah.
she's so aggressive that she does have, like, I remember watching her play because I watched the KLPJ pretty frequently too. So I was watching an event she was playing last summer, and it's like she'll be rolling 3 or 4 birdies, 3 or 4 under on the round, and then she'll throw
Yeah.
like OB, and not like even like barely OB, like big OB. Like, she'll have a big miss. And
Okay.
next thing you know, she has like an 8 on the scorecard, and like, triple on a par 5 or something. It's like, and it kind of just enough to keep her out, like,
Yeah.
from close, especially in those big events. Like, you can't.
She's
It's
like Phil.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
She's like Phil. She plays aggressive. She go hard or go home. And I'm sure that one of these days it's going to work. Her game it's going to work and she's just going to demolish. So,
We did get to see. I
yeah.
mean, for about, well, actually, I think last week at Gainbridge was her first finish outside the top 25 since 2019, or I mean, like the beginning of 2019. She had some unreal stretch. And then we saw a little bit last summer when she won KPMG, I think by 5 over Inbee, by the way, coming in nice close second.
She's like, I mean, talk about Inbee. Like, she disappears for months. She plays like 4 tournaments and she's still top 5 in the world.
Yeah. Inbee, if I go back to my personal like history of knowing the women's game, I think when I first noted, so I'm 26 now. So 2011-ish, which is interesting because I didn't know at the time. But the LPGA Tour, it's about the lowest. Like, things were all sorts of trouble on the LPGA at that time, 2010, 2011, financial sponsors leaving, etc. But I remember seeing Yanni Yanni was like full dominant mode.
Yep.
Like, it was like she couldn't lose. Like, it was almost, I don't want to compare anybody ever to Tiger, but for that stretch of time, it was like Yanni was winning like every tournament that she played in.
Yeah.
So I remember that. But then the next stretch was, the next 2 people that really stand out to me was watching Inbee. She won the first 3 majors. What year was that? 2013 or 14, maybe. She won the first 3 majors of the year, and it was like, whoa, could she, like the Inbee Slam? Could she do it? And then watching Lydia play. But Inbee's one of my favorites. Again, you're gonna talk about quote unquote, like, as a spectator, maybe it's boring at times.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I loved watching, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that, like the technical side of things. Is that Inbee at her peak, which I guess she's still going, and then Lydia.
Dude, I'm telling you, Inbee. So I know Inbee from TPC Summerlin, and I don't know her like personally, but I've seen her several times practicing there, and I don't think she's boring to watch at all. Like, I think when I watch her on TV, I'm like, oh, is she gonna make another one? Like, like, I'm like anticipating that she's gonna knock it in the hole, and then if she doesn't, I'm like, what happened? Why didn't she knock it into the hole? Like, you're always expecting that she's going to make every putt she looks at. And for me, that's what's really entertaining about her is from tee to green. Yeah, she makes some really phenomenal approach shots, but I think the magic for her is on the putting green. And she's so amazing to me. I mean, literally, she doesn't play a full tour schedule, and she comes out. She still plays super, super awesome, and she manages to be, I'm gonna be number 3 in the world this week. Like, it's just so nonchalant, and she's so nice, right?
Yeah.
Like, she's so nice, and her husband is so nice, and it's really awesome. She's a very special person.
Yeah,
Very, very
I totally agree. 2 things. First one is that, like, she just kind of shows up. You remember in 2016, the Olympics year, golf makes its return, but she had missed most of that year because I think she was dealing with a thumb injury. And it's like, okay, she's not going to play. And then leading up to it, we're like 2 months out, a month out, she still hadn't like withdrawn that position. Like, okay, well, she's going to play. And she goes and wins the freaking gold medal.
I know. I totally remember that. And like, we were all like, what is she going to do? Right? Like, is she gonna just completely shit the bed, or like, what is she gonna do? And then she just demolishes.
Yeah.
And it's so freaking impressive. It's like she never missed a beat. And she's like that every time you see her in a golf tournament, right? Like, you didn't hear of her for like 3 months, and then she comes out and it's as though she had been playing every week. And it's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy.
I'm so envious too, because like living here in the Midwest, we have winters. I mean, you're dealing with winters now in Virginia.
Yeah, not like your winters, though.
Not like my winter, but there's usually a solid stretch, especially during the pandemics. Like, okay, I'm not going to do any indoor golf right now, but there's probably at least 2 to 3 months where I'm like pretty sure we might get a few days where it warms up. Like, oh, got to go outside. But basically, I'm not playing golf. Basically, don't play golf at all. And I get my first couple rounds. Like, I came back and played at our local city course, 9-hole course. It's about 6,000 yards. It's a pretty short course. It might even be less than that right now. They're not playing the real tee boxes. And I shot 4 over 40. And I'm like, I feel really, really great about that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's like I hit some good golf shots there. You can't shoot
Yeah.
4 over that, but I'm trying to compare this to a Hall of Famer. Inbee Park though, she like shows up to actual professional events in the highest level events and is right there in contention and then wins.
Yep.
And as a nice person, like you said, I
Yeah.
remember it was the second LPGA event I'd ever like worked, and I was working on an article, and I was like, oh, maybe Inbee will ask, like maybe I don't know, like I have no idea really how the whole process works, but maybe I can see if I can ask her some questions. And she was not in contention that week. It was a Friday, I think, and the last hole she hits like a 40-foot putt. Surprise? No, like you said, it's Inbee because you're kind of surprised if she
Yeah.
doesn't make it.
Yeah. How many, if you think about it, how many players can you list where that is your mentality towards them, right? Like even for Danielle, like I don't really feel like she's going to make or miss either way, right? But with Inbee, I'm like, oh crap, she missed the hole. What happened? So
Yeah, no, for sure. Like Inbee's miss, it's like if she lips out, like you expect the miss to be even that. It's not like a full miss. Like you're not like a cup outside or a cup like
right.
it's not like every putt seems to have a legitimate chance to go in. Speed's
Correct.
almost always good.
Correct.
But yeah, it was amazing. Like she made that putt, and then I asked one of the LPGA media officials, like, hey, could you see if Inbee could answer a few of my questions? I'm like, okay, asked her. She was like, sure, yeah, why not? I mean, I'm not in contention, so I don't know why you're talking to me, but I'll like, well, it's not a day-to-day, it's like a longer term story. It's like preparing for majors kind of story. And so she talked to me. I don't even remember, like, talk about starstruck. I'm
Yeah.
like, it's like this is Inbee.
Yeah, right? But
And
she's so down to earth, isn't she?
she
And
is.
like you it's just like you're talking to a normal person, and but then in the back of your mind, like she's not a normal person.
Yeah, right. It's like legitimately one of the greatest golfers that's ever lived. And if you want to get real technical, it's like on the putting side, my full belief is that she's right there, like with Tiger and like
Oh,
just greatest putters, period.
yeah. Oh no, I think for a time she was the best putter in the world. Like men and women combined, there's no one that was going to touch her putting stats. Like
Yeah.
it's just people would be like, "Oh, who do you think is the best putter?" And I'm like, "Oh, Inbee Park," right? And they'd be like, "Oh, like she's good for the LPGA Tour," and I'm like, "No, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
She can whoop anybody's ass on the putting green. There's no one that is going to touch her putting.
Yeah.
Period." And that's her bread and butter, right? And what a great thing to be your bread and butter is putting.
For sure. And that just like, I don't know, like just hearing people to say that though, that is one of the things it's a little frustrating. It's like, okay, if you want to talk about distance off the tee, okay, like we know there's a physical distance on that front. Like men are going to hit it further than most women. That's kind of
Yeah.
the way that it is. But the putting greens, there's no such, like, to me, there's not such thing as she putts good for a girl or a woman. Like, yo, this is the same playing field. Like when you get on the greens, everyone's the same.
Oh,
and she will beat that. You know what?
Oh, for sure. She definitely, and I don't think enough people recognize that,
Mhm.
right? There's a men's tour and there's a women's tour. But let's get real. When it comes to short game, right? It don't matter if you're male or female, right? Because you still have to knock it into the stupid hole. So there's an advantage, I guess, if you're longer off the tee, which we clearly see that, especially now, with the golf courses getting longer and longer. But if you can scramble and you're a good putter, it doesn't matter which tour you're on. Like, and you see that in the stats, right? Like everyone has to play a 50-yard shot. Everyone has to play a 100-yard shot. Everyone has to play a 200-yard shot, 250, 300, even 350, 400. The only difference for the men is that they'll get like an occasional, like 650-yard par, whatever. Right. And the women don't. But if you think about it in terms of ratios, right, on just the percentage of the women playing from that type of length on the ladies tour, Like, that's what you have to start looking at, right? You don't
Yeah.
just look at, oh yeah, DJ can hit it a ton, Bryson can hit it a ton. Who cares? You can't putt.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And this is a whole nother conversation. We could, maybe we can have a conversation, another episode, another day. Cause I don't want to take too much of your time this time, but another conversation to have is that like the ratio of what the women are currently playing at versus what the men. It's like the clubs that they have in their hand versus what the men have in their hand at that distance. It's like the ratio is something like the men are playing. If the LPGA was, I forget, I don't even know how to describe this. I always mess it up. Essentially, the women are playing the equivalent of 8,000 yard courses, like if the men were playing 8,000 yard courses or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it is amazing what everyone does in the LPGA. So from like
Absolutely.
a teaching perspective, what are a few things or a couple things that as a viewer that we could really take from the LPGA? Or maybe there's a couple players like that watch this player in their short game, watch this player in their driving. Do you have a couple examples that you can think of?
Yeah. So I think as an average golfer, like, just like your everyday golfer, if you're wanting to improve your scores, then you have to be accurate off the tee and you have to be a good putter. That's the magic formula. And I tell this to people all the time. They're like, oh, how do I reduce, 5 strokes, 10 strokes, whatever. Well, let's think about this for a second. If you were to take away 2 putts around, right? That's an average of 2 strokes better for your scores, right? That's easy. Let's say you're somebody that 3 putts 4 or 5 times around. Well, get rid of those and there's your 4 or 5 strokes right there, right?
Yeah.
So then you have your drives. Okay, well, if someone's like, I'm not very accurate or long off the tee, well, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be long off the tee as long as you're in the fairway. If you can hit 60% of your fairways, you're doing great. If you can get from 60 to 70%, your score is going to improve. It's just a matter of making sure that you're in the fairway, and that's what a lot of people overlook. That's where I think the LPGA does such a fantastic job, right? Is they're really accurate off the tee. And most average golfers don't have to be that accurate, and luckily because the fairway is so wide, right? But we need to find the fairway. A thing that I think a lot of people can learn when it comes to driver is that the LPGA players, because the swing speed tends to be somewhere in the 90s mile per hour kind of situation, right? Whereas the PGA Tour is more in like the hundreds. The LPGA Tour swing speed is a little bit more applicable to amateur golfers. With that being said, the angle of attack, so the angle in which the club approaches the ball for LPGA Tour players, the average is about +3, unless you're like Seong, who's like +5 or +6. Okay, and we all know that Seong hits it really far, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like she launches that ball in the air. So the lower your swing speed is, the more positive angle of attack that you need on the ball. For the PGA Tour, because their swing speeds are so high, they actually start to go down into the ball to create a little bit of that spin. So you don't really want to try to mimic a golf swing like DJ or like Bryson or Rory or whoever it may be, because their swing speed is not realistic or applicable to your swing speed. So somebody that I really like to watch is Jennifer Song, right? Like she has a great swing, really sound, clean swing. And she, you can see that she swings up on the ball like most of the LPGA players do. So if you don't know what your angle of attack is, you can always go to a golf professional or a teacher who has a TrackMan or any kind of launch monitor, and they'll be able to track what your angle of attack is. And I can almost promise you, if you're looking for more distance off the tee, if you can get that number to a positive number, you're going to pick up 10, 15, 20, 25 yards just like that by changing that number.
That's amazing. By the way, with Jennifer, it's a great example. And she's someone that if you check out her Instagram, she does share quite a few of her swing videos. So
yeah,
you can see that
she
up
does.
close. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So a little bit about you. When you're not playing golf, what's something that you like to do?
I like to sleep and eat.
Love
So
it.
yeah, no, I'm a big I like to binge watch TV, so that's what I do to kind of turn off for a while.
Do you have any movie or show recommendations right now?
Right now I'm actually so I hadn't watched the Ozark show. So I'm on season 3 right now. We're gonna wrap it up here in the next couple nights, I think. But
Oh,
I'm a big like SVU fan. So huge SVU fan. Chicago PD. I'm really into like either like action crime kind of shows. American Housewife. Have you seen American Housewife?
I don't think so.
I don't know if you'd like it, but it's a really funny show. I think it's on like ABC or something, but it's a really great show. So we'll watch that when it comes out every week. What else? I haven't watched a K-drama in so long.
Run On. I suggest Run On.
Run On. Okay. I'm gonna have to look into
Well,
it.
I've only watched a couple. I suggest that one because, well, it's like I watched the whole thing, but also because it was sports related. It has to do with
Okay.
a runner, and actually, the sister, she's like a not a main character, but she's a professional golfer, and she like low key is a representation of Inbee. But like it's not her family. It's
Really?
not her family. But there's a scene at the beginning where like they're panning through like the room, and then there's a KPMG Women's PGA Championship trophy. Like it says it's not like the real one, but it actually says KP. I paused it and I was like, "What? Is
That's
this real?"
awkward. What the? Okay.
So
Huh.
so strange. Maybe I'll send you like that little clip. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, I like those. Um, kind of golf related. Are you superstitious at all?
I used to be. Not I don't think so. I don't think so much anymore. No.
Okay. What's a skill that you wish you had?
I wish I could be a better putter.
Same
Uh,
here.
yeah, you mean like golf skill, right? That's what you're asking.
Um, well, it could be golf skill or any skill, like in general, like be able to play a musical instrument or
Oh,
some.
gotcha. Other than being a good putter, I think I think I'd really like to be efficient at production for
Oh,
my social stuff. You
I
know,
love
I'm
that.
always so like impressed with really clean videos, and I'm like, oh, how'd they do that? And that kind of thing. So
Well, I think you're doing
yeah.
a very good job. My opinion, you're
Oh,
doing a really good job with especially I know you've been on top of your TikTok and Reels lately.
the reels have been really nice because they're super short.
Mhm.
TikTok has been interesting because that's really not my jam.
Yeah,
But I'll post them anyway just to see, for reach. So yeah, maybe like just production stuff
yeah, I
is my
got you.
thing. Yeah.
Okay, so to wrap it up, rapid fire questions for you. First
Okay.
one:
Yes.
breakfast, lunch, or dinner?
Oh, breakfast.
Easy choice.
Breakfast any time of the day.
I am right there with you.
Yeah.
Early morning golf or twilight golf?
Early morning golf.
Would you rather play around with a full set of left-handed clubs or around with only your regular pitching wedge?
um. Oh, that's a really great question. Probably just my pitching wedge.
I'm gonna ask because, like, have you played at all with like done any lefty
I've
swings?
I've tried lefty swings, and I won't do it again only because I literally like no joke, I like hurt my shoulder when I swung lefty because I hit the ground so freaking hard. So no, not happening again.
Okay, you can make the pitching wedge work.
Yeah, I can.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Last
Yeah.
question. Would you rather have two hole-in-ones in one round or have the course record?
Two hole-in-ones in one round ever, or just that one round you're asking, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Like, is there a limit on hole-in-ones? Let's see.
Like if you went to a golf course.
No. Oh my gosh. Can't I have both?
I would.
I
I
can't
mean,
both.
chances are, if you have 2 hole-in-ones, you're probably on track to a course record.
I don't know. Sometimes, like, I saw a girl hit a hole-in-one on my golf team, and she literally got like, so she got a 2 on a hole, or sorry, a hole-in-one on a par 3. Then it was a par 5, and I think she got like a 9 on the next hole because she was so excited.
Oh.
So I don't know, man. Probably course record, actually. I would go for the course record.
It's I've asked like one other person that I'm interested to see if anyone will take the 2 hole-in-ones. Do you have any hole-in-ones?
I do. I have 2.
You have 2?
I have 2 hole-in-ones. So this is kind of my logic. It's hole-in-ones, you have to have a little bit of luck, right? So it's just one of those things that can happen to you. Putting a record round together, though, requires a lot of work and a lot of, like, so I would say it would be more fulfilling and rewarding to get a course record than 2 hole-in-ones. Although
Gotcha.
I'm sure my husband would say the opposite because he's never had one before. So
it is very interesting because for me, from my perspective, I don't have any hole-in-ones yet.
Yeah.
But that 2 hole-in-ones went around is very enticing. However, course record, your name, even if it gets beat eventually, it will be like displayed like I did this. Like,
you're doing it for notoriety. Come on.
Well, no, for a person. I mean, look, I'm probably not. I have a lot of golf years left. I don't know if my game's going to reach that level. It'd take a lot of work to get there, but yeah. Well, Cathy, thank you so much for spending some time today talking to me. Is there, where can people like follow you on social media?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Clubhouse. What else is there? YouTube. You can just find me at Cathy Kim Golf on any of those.
All right, and I'll add
Facebook.
the name below when I post this.
Great. Yeah, and then if you guys have any, like, I offer obviously in-person lessons, and I also offer classes, but if you're looking for a Zoom lesson or a swing analysis, really simple, quick thing, then you can also check out my website. It's cathykimgolf.com.
All right, and I highly suggest seeing Cathy. Obviously, she's the best, so You're
so sweet.
Well, thank you, Cathy. It's been a lot of fun talking with you, and
thank you.
Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to episode 20 of Pitchin It With Ben. If you liked what you heard, please like, rate, comment, subscribe, and share. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to reach out to me on social media. See you in episode 21.